Welcome to you all. Welcome to Vantage, Washington, USA. It's 5:48 p.m. According to my watch, we'll begin our program on Ginkgo Petrified Forest State Park and also George Beck at the top of the hour in about 12 minutes from now. So if you're watching this in replay, go ahead and skip ahead 12 minutes. Otherwise, I was just, somebody just brought me a beer. Hey, Kevin, come on over. I mean, these state parks people, they aim to please. Let me get my Rainier beer. We'll keep our distance, Kevin, but if you wanted to come right up pretty close, you know, I'm standing like literally right here and I'm just saying, hey everybody, how's it going? So
okay.
I don't know how long you've been working at parks, how long you've been working here, and
Sure.
what can people experience if they get here?
All right, well, yeah, welcome. Thanks for everyone tuning in. Thanks for having me on here,
Thanks for
Nick.
coming out, man.
Yeah, I've been here at Ginkgo for about 2.5 years now. Pretty awesome spot to come and explore. There's a really great backcountry area here to hike around in and get in this beautiful shrub steppe ecosystem. So yeah, I'd encourage everyone to come pay us a visit. And yeah, once again, Nick, thanks for doing this. Great to see you.
Thanks for the beer.
Yeah, you got it. And enjoy. I'll see you around, Nick.
You bet. Any word on when the museum might open up for real?
So when Kittitas gets into phase 3.
Phase 3 for our county?
Yeah. So there's fingers crossed, no definitive word yet, but maybe July 1.
Maybe July
That's
1.
what we're really hopeful
For opening the museum.
Yeah.
In the meantime, you're kind of grounds and a few other things.
Yeah,
and
helping out down at the campground.
I see. Yeah.
Staying busy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for dropping by, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. All right. I think I was just going to have water tonight, but I guess not. Kevin lives here on the grounds here at this state park. We got big old dark cloud, which should pass through, but we've got variable light conditions at the moment. I don't know, can you see the Vantage Bridge? You're kind of looking southeast right now. That's the Columbia behind me and the main bridge over the Columbia I-90. So we have a few minutes. We have about 10 minutes before we begin for real. Oh good, hi Ryan. So Ryan Carlson is with us. You see R and L Carlson. If you're a regular, you'll know that the Carlson family from Tumwater, I guess, close to the Mima Mounds, they've been with us almost every time. And Ryan is a former student at Central, not of mine, but of Carl Loquist in geography, friend of mine. And Ryan did a master's thesis here, and Ryan oversees many of the interpretive sites, not just here at Ginkgo, but other places. So we have a Jerome with us this evening, and his name is Ryan Carlson, Carlson with a K. So R&L Carlson, you'll see him there on occasion. And we'll do a little live Q&A, and we may involve Ryan a little bit as well. But first things first, looks like we're functional, but can I double check with you? I think there's like 3, even 4 bars. Why am I looking at my watch? I can't see the bars now, but I think we got at least 3 bars for most of this. And we're gonna take a little walk, might even take a little drive. And I think I actually came over here on Sunday afternoon and tested this out. So I was so gun shy from the Wenatchee thing. Randy and I had like 2 bars and didn't work as well as I'd hoped coverage-wise, but it turned out okay. So I'm seeing some 5 and 5, 5x5. Just want to double check one more time. Yeah, that's nice right now. I got a little shade so I can read very clearly. Anders is having some syncing problems. Good go. 5x5, Joni, thank you. Okay, so I think since I have you here and since we're kind of before the program begins, I think my plan is I'm going to stand here. I brought the ladder. You're on the ladder. You're in the boxy McBox. But I have the gizmo. I have the gizmo. So I'm thinking 20 minutes here, and then I'll get you onto the gizmo. I'll just kind of leave the ladder here. I'll throw the valuable stuff I have with me in the car. We'll walk around the grounds here. There's a lot of petrified logs laying out if you've never been here to Ginkgo Petrified Forest State Park. We can't go in the museum, as you heard me talking to Kevin. They're officially closed until our county moves to phase 3, coming out of the pandemic stuff. But there's plenty to do a little show and tell for you here. And then I want to go up the road with you. I want to actually try to live stream while I'm driving, and that sounds super dangerous, but we're going to be on a road that there's no traffic. It's a back road. I don't want you to be nervous. And I'm just curious if I can live stream like through the roof of the car, basically, and see how that works. And if it fails, whatever. But I might get into a few pockets where I'm down to 2 bars, and I think I've learned from experience that if we lose each other and then we come back, I'm very fuzzy, aren't I? That's the common experience on your end. Like I cut out and then I like reconnect with you basically, and then suddenly the resolution is terrible, and it's so I'm looking anyway. But you need to come down here, get to that gear icon, play with it, drop down from 720 to 480 or whatever. Many of us are experienced now. We kind of know the general thing. I'm seeing the word buffering now. Are you frickin' kidding me? Nick Zentner, it's not Thursday. What? All right, that's why we start these early. I'm not going to do a thing. I'm just going to wait here and continue to see your reports. Not too bad. Better now. I'll never really understand this, I guess. Comes and goes. Yeah, that's the whole deal. I don't get why it comes and goes. This was a solid 3 bars. It's even 4 over there on the lip, but it's a little windier over there. So you know how this works. I can't be reading your comments and looking at all your problems on your end when I'm talking. So I'm just going to assume that we'll just hope for the best, you know? That's all we can do. Rain here, beer. That's so nice of Kevin. Let's look ahead to the week yet to come. What? So last night was Spokane Geology, talking about John Stockton's house and a few other things over there. Tonight we are here talking about George Beck and Ginkgo Petrified Forest State Park, and giving you a good feel for this place. And if you've been here and it's been 103 degrees and 30-mile-an-hour winds, and you're like, why would anybody, we're never going back there. Well, maybe I'll be able to give you a little sense of what's here on a nice evening like tonight with 2.5 bars. Tomorrow, Israel Russell, and here's the little secret. I haven't started yet. So I'm going to pull an all-nighter and get ready for you tomorrow. I have a few ideas, but boy, I got a lot of reading to do, and I'm looking forward to it, but I'm not a last-minute guy, and I'm going to have to be a last-minute guy for tomorrow night. Kittitas Valley, of course, now there's wind in the forecast, so I don't know what I'm doing on Saturday. And then Sunday, paleomagnetism, good Lord. Kevin brought me the beer, and then he said, oh wait, you already have a drink. So Kind of like my dad, I have a hard time throwing things out, so I think this is 10 years old. And I use it as a water bottle. It fits nice in my pack, and I can, so he got a big kick out of that. So vodka and beer. This is water. This is water. This isn't. Okay, I got 2 minutes according to my watch. I'm gonna take a little walk and gather my thoughts, see if I can find them somewhere here. And we'll begin. You kind of know the plan. And we've got almost 600 with us. I hope you enjoyed tonight's program. Thank you for being with us. Hey now. Hey, get out of here. Well, a pleasant good evening to you all. Welcome to Vantage, Washington, USA. Myself, on behalf of myself and this fly that's buzzing around my head. Good taste, by the way, for the fly. Good job by you. I welcome you to this third of our little field experiences. We were over at Frenchman Coulee a couple weeks ago. We were over at Wenatchee twice last week, and this is one of potentially two little field trips we're doing this week. And we are located right in the middle of the state. This is the main bridge crossing the Columbia River. This is Interstate 90 that you can see. Maybe you can even hear the trucks. Can you see some of the traffic going back and forth there? I don't want to play with the phone. I don't want to screw up the buffering issues there, but we've got plenty to talk about tonight. And in specifics, I'd like to talk about a gentleman by the name of George Beck. That's why you tuned in, part of the reason why you tuned in. So I want to kind of weave George's history and the history of this state park, Ginkgo Petrified Forest State Park, in the history of the geology department at Central Washington University, where I teach. My name is Nick Zentner. I teach at Central, but back in George's day, it was a one-man show. He was the only guy teaching geology from 1925 until 1959. 1925 to 1959. So not only was he a wonderful teacher and mentor to many undergraduate students who were interested in learning geology, he became a specialist in plant fossils and specifically petrified wood. But he moved on to vertebrate fossils and other kinds of things as well. So he was an authority. He was a hard worker, and he helped lay the groundwork for this park to get developed and these petrified logs to be protected. But he also had a chance to branch out and do music teaching and other things along those lines. So George Beck, the state park, we'll take a little drive together. If it works, we'll take a little walk together. The light is really good, especially to the north of us here. You're looking east across the river. But here at this side of the river, this is the name of the game. We're going to use the Cozy Fort a little bit tonight. So here's one of the standards from Cozy Fort by Steve. Right? So this is wood. Is it wood? No, it's rock. This is it looks like a piece of wood, but when you look carefully, and I did not collect this here, you can't collect petrified wood within the state park. So this is from George Beck's collection that I inherited back in Ellensburg. So this is beautifully preserved wood. If I can get in properly, I don't know how well the focus will hold, but as you come in quite aggressively, you can see some of the details here with this wood. Now, this is just one slab of wood, but it's quite common, and we did have a petrified wood show a couple months back, so if you saw that, I've got a little bit of overlap. But a common way to put this together is to take a big old log, slice it, in other words, a petrified log, like the tree has turned to stone, and then as a rock person, you take a rock saw and you cut this tree trunk into slabs, just like you would if you're working in the backyard getting ready for winter. But then you have an ability to polish that slab. This is also from George Beck's collection, and you might number it. This is actually Audie Turner's collection, now that I think about it. But this is the star of the show. And we hit some main themes from last time. Last time meaning the last time we did one of these petrified wood sessions. And I would want to hit very quickly a couple of the basics. There's petrified wood here in Central Washington because there were giant lava flows. In other words, we want to connect those things together. You see a bunch of major basalt lava flows on the skyline behind me. There's about 6 different layers of the German chocolate cake. And you might remember there are 300 layers total in the German chocolate cake. So you're looking at 6. You're looking at a small portion of those lava flows. But at the very base of just a couple of the lavas are these logs. And the petrified logs are right in the bottom zone within the basaltic rock layer. So here's a sketch from a new exhibit that's here at Ginkgo Museum when they're open. And you can see all these petrified logs that are concentrated in one particular zone. So this is one of the 300 layers called the Ginkgo lava flow. And it's named the Ginkgo lava flow because there are Ginkgo petrified logs at the base. But most poorly understood by most is that the Ginkgo logs are actually quite rare. It's called Ginkgo petrified forest just because there's this rare freak show of a couple of Ginkgo logs that are preserved. And they're super valuable, by the way, because they're so rare. Most of these logs are different kinds of tree species. And the mystery that remains, it was a mystery during Beck's time back in the 30s when he made this discovery, and it's still a mystery, is why do you have about every kind of wood imaginable all together in this deposit? So within 3 square miles, you've got Can you come up with trees off the top of your head? Can I? I'm not a botany person. Redwood, sweet gum, oak, pine, Douglas fir, swamp cypress, tupelo. They're all here together. And they represent, and of course there's a bunch more species as well, including the ginkgo. There's a oak. There's a bunch of different kinds of trees that don't grow together, and yet they are here together in this kind of graveyard. And they're in the bottom of one particular lava flow. So back in the early 1930s, Beck and some friends and some students on occasion would go out and search for these logs and make inventory and make scientific study, and eventually come up with an idea that there was a lake here. There was a lake, and by the way, these lavas are 16 million years old, so we're not talking about the Ice Age now. This petrified log story and these giant lavas are from the Miocene, meaning 16 million years ago. And so we have these logs. God knows how they got into the lake from different locations, but they got into the lake. They're floating in the lake, kind of like Spirit Lake up by Mount St. Helens today. And here comes this ginkgo lava flow coming into the lake, flowing over the lake, and the heat of that lava basically flashed the water to steam, and you would think that these logs would have burned up in the heat of the lava, and many did, I'm sure. But some of the logs survived, and the thought is it was the water that protected or allowed those logs to survive. Without the water, all the logs would be incinerated immediately. That's a hot lava flow. But because the water is there, we know that there was some protection. So therefore, if we go back to that sketch, this fly is in my hair the entire show. It's not Thursday, but Nick Zentner's getting pissed. Sorry, Patrick. You can't see it well in this sketch, but I want to drive to a place where we can look at the very specific stuff below the logs and between the logs, and it's something called pillow basalt. And we know by looking at the shapes of pillow basalts that water was present. In other words, the bottom of the lava flow actually split into fingers as that lava went into this lake. So it must have been an exciting thing to watch. Nobody was here 15 million years ago, not even Native Americans. That's way too old for any human occupation. And yet it would have been fun to watch from a safe distance. Now, I promised a walk, and I promised not to spend the whole time with you here talking into the top of the ladder. But I do, while I have you here and I have these valuable pieces of information, these artifacts, these old photos and other things, I want to share them to you now, and then I'll toss them into the van before we take a walk. I have had the good fortune of meeting the grandson of George Beck, and he's still living in Yakima. He's still working at a saddle shop, and if you look up plant fossils of the Pacific Northwest, that's a full YouTube lecture that I did last year, and I give the whole backstory about George, the grandson of George Beck. But to make the long story short here, I have visited the grandson George on a number of occasions, and he has warmed up to me to the point where he has wanted to give me a bunch of these precious family documents, because George the grandson is not going to be around forever, and he wants these precious things from his grandfather's legacy to be preserved either at my school, with the archives within our geology department, or over at the Burke Museum, where many of Granddad's materials were sent after George retired in 1959. So let me kind of willy-nilly go through a number of things that George, the grandson, shared with me, basically gave to me, and I'm taking good care of them in the department. And a year ago, George, the grandson, I took the grandson over to the Burke Museum, and we visited with Tad Dilhoff at the Burke, and the Burke is just about, hasn't had their grand opening yet. But it was fun to kind of come full circle and have the grandson, a representative of George Beck, see all these materials that were collected by his granddad back in the 1930s primarily. The original journals from the grandson were given to me. Copies were made. I have the copies. The originals are at the Beck. Here's another shot of the grandson dealing with Tad Dilhoff. I met Dilhoff 20 years earlier. He came over and took photographs of a bunch of the wood that was donated to our department by Audie Turner, a guy who used to run the Liberty Rock Shop in Yakima. And Tad took a bunch of high quality photographs of the different polished slabs. And this is really the way to tell the different kinds of wood, by simply looking at the cell structure. It's like a biology or a botany exercise as opposed to a geology one. I also brought the laptop. I don't have wireless here, but I've got a special treat involving listening to George Beck. Listening to George Beck while standing here at Ginkgo Park. And I have some photos to show you in the Cozy Fort here in just a second. But I'm just going to give you a sense of these wonderful items that were, I want to say loaned, but I guess they weren't loaned. They were given to me. And I need to make sure that they're taken care of. Personal snapshots with things written on the back. Mouth of ryegrass. So there's many different trips coming from Ellensburg. Ellensburg is about 30 miles away. We're still in Kittitas County. And Beck was over here regularly from the late 20s through much of the 1930s and started these journals in the early 1930s as well. And I think even when he moved on to vertebrate fossils and other types of things, he was still bringing students over here to learn. These are some of my favorite photos from the early days. Beck was a musician, so here's these student trips from Central back in the 20s. I mean, they're driving up to Grand Coulee. They're driving up to, before Grand Coulee Dam is built, they're going up there to collect leaf fossils. And they're going up on Steamboat Rock, another personal favorite of the original photo of Beck and his students on top of Steamboat Rock in central Washington in the heart of the Grand Coulee, 1928. Beck he did most of this work himself. He cut all the thin sections himself. He published in many paleobotany journals. He actually had some kind of, I guess this is some kind of club or something. He even had some letterhead here. So these were donated to the department. I don't know this family, but they ended up with us. There's a bunch from Joe. And so George would regularly kind of send newsletters to all the residents in his club that were interested in, I guess, collecting their own petrified logs. This is George the grandson in a photo from one of the classrooms, one of the labs in Lind Hall, probably. I could do this forever. I won't. I'll do a couple more. Oh, we're losing the sun for just a little bit. Beck. So Nancy Holtquist sends out a little study email for people who are really into these live streams, and she does a bunch of suggested reading, and I'm on the list, so I saw what Nancy sent around, and that reminded me that there was some original audio of George Beck at kind of a retirement gathering in the 1960s. So I quick hustled and asked Marty Blackson over at the archives in the Central Library if he could send me the audio file, and he did within an hour. So thank you, Marty, for that hustle. And so if you'll give me just a second, because the sun's coming back out, I'm going to set up the Cozy Fort by Steve. And instead of looking at video, I want to play some audio of George Beck talking to us, essentially, from 1965 and reminiscing about the early days of setting up this park. And we could do an hour of it. I guess we won't. Oh boy. Come on, baby. Talk amongst yourselves now. That beer tasted good. One visitor to the park. They're confused. Oh boy. If Marty McFly is going to join us in the cozy fort, I'm going to lose it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I don't know, do we need the crossbar? What the heck, we got it, Steve. We'll use it. Okay, still with us? We got people boating behind me. Maybe you can hear a little bit of muffler boy that's a boat, jet ski. Okay, there's a chance this will work well. Just telling you. Oh, there's a newspaper article Jeff from Vinman sent me. I'll just give you a taste of it. Yeah. Jeff from Vinman's, you gotta love it. Vinman's Bakery in downtown Ellensburg. You got to love it. Jeff emailed me a 1933 article, April 1st, from the Ellensburg Daily Record newspaper. Caravan visits petrified trees high on steep cliff northward of Columbia from Vantage. George Beck, normal school geology instructor, says trees do not resemble Washington forest now standing. Let me just read this to you. Geologists are uncovering in the wilderness on Frenchman Mountain, north of Vantage Bridge on the west side of the Columbia River, great numbers of petrified trees, buried thousands of years ago. They didn't quite have the absolute age dating yet. And only comparatively recently brought to light through erosion and the constant assault of the elements. They didn't know about the Ice Age floods either. Washington's petrified forest is in a section difficult to reach, necessitating either a climb up a cliff 1,000 feet high, rising from the riverbank, or traversing 5 miles of rocky terrain from the west end of the bridge. Once arrived, however, a visitor is amply repaid for his efforts, according to George F. Beck, geologist of the Ellensburg Normal School, now Central Washington University. Mr. Beck was accompanied by H.L. Cook from the Milwaukee Railroad and students from the school, and they made their trip to the petrified forest last week. This is March of 1933. The caravan elected to climb the cliff. The ascent, however, was so arduous and fraught with peril that the party returned overland, despite the rough going. The most interesting thing about the forest, said Mr. Beck, is that it does not resemble Washington forest now standing, being more like the forests of the Great Lakes area and corresponding closely to those of southeastern Asia. Oak, maple, gum, elm, and hosts of other varieties are to be found here, scattered in an area of 10 square miles. The rarest specimen is a ginkgo tree, the sacred tree of China. It is neither a conifer nor a hardwood, but a near relative of each, and is unknown anywhere today in its natural state. When China was opened to the white race, a fossilized specimen of this tree was found preserved in the temple gardens of Beijing. With the progress of geology in the past 50 years, evidence has been uncovered showing this tree was once thousands of years old, widespread in America. The specimen near Vantage has been in lava for more than 10,000 years. We now know it's 16 million. This particular forest we are trying to have set aside by the government as a natural curiosity, in other words, the state park. A road can be constructed into the section, making it easily accessible to tourists. The extent of the ginkgo tree found exposed here indicates it once was of enormous size, probably 30 to 32 feet in circumference and from 10 to 12 feet in diameter. Okay, it's one thing to read an old newspaper clipping, and thanks again to Jeff from Vinman's Bakery to send that to me, but it's another to hear George talk. And this, hold on, Patrick. So I got a little playlist that I put together. No big deal. Maybe it is a big deal. How do I get it full screen? Right. So this is Beck at a 1965. So he retired in 1959. So he's already retired and has moved to Yakima, but he's come back up to Ellensburg in Randall Hall at CW's campus. And a mural was painted by Sarah Spurgeon. I think that's her on the right. And maybe that's Mrs. Beck on the left. And George spoke at this celebration of his career and this unveiling of this mural to honor him. And a dormitory named Beck Hall was also named at about that time. So it's during this session that somebody got a microphone out and recorded. And I'm going to jump ahead. This is an hour long. You can find it online. If I don't know what you'd type in. George Beck, Geology, CW, audio, whatever. But I'm going to go to the 22-minute mark. We'll listen to about 5 minutes of this, and I want to show you some photos while you listen in case this is not scintillating for you.
But if your log or stump does not show any injury, then you're going to have an awful time to tell whether you have a swamp cypress or whether you have a redwood. Anyhow, what showed that it was swamp cypress in the long run is that the kinds of woods that occur with it. Swamp oak, swamp hickory, and so on, you see. Swamp cypresses, swamp tupelo gums, and so on. Would indicate that if you couldn't tell the woods apart any other way, it had to be swamp cypress and not redwood. And then it turns out that we never did have any.
Can I get it any louder?
That what we had in this country was that new, terrifically interesting, even more so than ginkgo now, dawn redwood of China. See, instead of being two redwoods in the whole worldwide, one growing in the very high altitudes in the Sierras of California, and one down in the fog belt at sea level in California, there was a third that's growing in China that they didn't know about. And long time ago, I forecast that we'd find that there were just as many redwoods growing back those 15 million years ago in the great lava flows. There were just as many redwoods growing as there are pines today. That it was the tree that had branched out into various kinds that occupied the same niches that the pines do today. You'll find pines at upper timberline, you'll find pines at lower timberline. You'll find them on the east side, you'll find them on the west side. You'll find them in eastern United States and western United States and so on. And various kinds of pines occupying various kinds of habitats, and that apparently was the situation with the redwood. We didn't have the coast redwood. Tom, do you know why? We began to suspect that very early in the game, that we didn't have the coast redwood. Because every tree that we have out there, like this piece of wood here, shows annual rings. There's 4 of them on this, whether you can see it or not. They all have annual rings, showing that we had well-defined winters, just as we do now. And the coast redwood will only grow where there's no frost, and it has to have fog. Those two things have to be present. So it began to look as though there wasn't redwood at all. The ginkgos held up, though. You see, that's what we were stuck with right from the first day. From the day that the name was chosen as Ginkgo Petrified Forest, we were stuck with the proposition that we had to have ginkgo out there. We couldn't back down on that. That'd be very embarrassing. Well, anyhow, about this time, we ran into two things. A group of students and I were on the way to Grand Coulee. You folks that were in school remember we used to get up at 2 o'clock. And how the students would complain when you came back about 2 o'clock the next morning. But you should see the letters they wrote home to their folks, the bragging they did about what they could take and so on. We'd have to do that to make it in a day, to go over to Grand Coulee and back. Get up at 2 o'clock. So just at dawn, we got out to the where the trailside building is. You know what I mean by that? Then we have that granite block that Tom and I put up on the south bluff and on the south slope, and then we have this trailside building on the north slope, 2 miles this side of the river, 3 miles this side of the river. And on the old road, we'd gone a little too far before we stopped, and we brought the people back to show that bed of sandstone between the lava flows. I don't know how we want to look at it, but it's something different anyhow. And in the dusk of early dawn, we stumbled over a stump standing about that high and about this big around, out of the very bottom of the coulee, that today is under the road. The road as it crosses through there has that stump buried if somebody didn't dig it out. That was our first lead. The second was that driving past one day, I saw a chap come down about 2 miles further west off the top with a chunk about this big around and about that long. And then we had the story right there that there was a layer extending from that tree buried down in the coulee, stump standing down the coulee, up the hillside to where this chap was, that had logs in it. So we got to going. That's that part of the story. We discovered we had a petrified forest buried in a lava flow. And of course, that's the thing we were challenged with at very first. The whole field of geology jumped on us saying one of two things. Either we didn't know lava when we saw it, or we didn't know petrified trees when we saw them. One or the other, it had to be. And but got to the point that anytime we take a fellow out there, any geologist out there, textbooks or no textbooks, we could convince him that it was lava and that they were petrified trees. So anyway, whatever difficulty you had in believing it, the thing actually existed. But to the field of geology, it was like a person talking about walking on water. It's just a thing that couldn't happen. But there they are anyhow. Now to get at the other angle of the story, that's following one side of the story. The other story is this. Along about in the 1920s, Dr. Merriam, who was head of the Carnegie Institution, in a trip down the gorge, the Columbia River Gorge, discovered a fossil leaf, an actual leaf, buried in the muds at the site of Bonneville Dam. And it turned out it was what had been up to that time the most fascinating of all fossils. The ginkgo leaf is fan-shaped, as you know. It's about this high, comes out from a single stalk and spreads out. And each vein divides into two parts equally as it goes along. You can't miss it once you have learned how to identify it. And here was the actual leaf. They're tough. They're like sycamore leaves. They're very, very, very tough. And in this case, the leaf had come through itself. Still, not just like the footprint in the mud, you know, but the shoe was there itself. They made the print. The leaf itself was still there. And of course, that attracted quite a bit of attention, and especially among us who were finding fossil leaves up at the Grand Coulee Dam site. It was one of the best fossil beds leaf beds in the country. And I'll have to tell you a little about the ginkgo. It's always been a fascinating fossil. 150 years ago now, just after the 1800s, when geology was getting started, they were sure that any plants they found buried or any animals they found buried were those that had been caught in the Great Flood. So if they found a long lance-shaped leaf, it was a willow leaf that it got caught. If they found a club-shaped one, it was a cottonwood. If they found one with teeth on it, it was an oak leaf. They were just sure of that. But two things, and when they found bones, they were the animals that had failed to get on the ark. But two things caused them trouble immediately. They began to find big bones that apparently weren't elephants. They're just ordinary elephants at any rate. And they found these fan-shaped leaves of a tree that was growing only in the temple gardens of
Woo!
And of course, both of them were dramatic. They more.
That's as long as I could stay, man. I'm sweating bullets right now. I gotta cool off. There's more audio, there's more old photos, but that's as long as I could hold out. Sorry about that. Hope you enjoyed it. Kind of a unique thing. Oh, yeah. So I'll tell you what, let's do a little live Q&A right here. I'll involve Ryan Carlson, who's with us, who knows much about the history of this park, and his specialization is Ice Age floods. And that's why we're going to take a little walk. But maybe I can try to handle a few Beck questions and a few petrified wood questions, since that's the main topic of our program here. And then I'll get you in the gizmo. Boy, it heats up in that cozy fort, man. Okay, I'm going to take charge here. When was the audio recorded? 1965. He was talking to mostly former students from the 30s and even the 20s. Kind of fun. Did George Beck ever discover any petrified wood in craters of the moon? Got him. Fred has a hard time hearing. Sorry to hear that, Fred. How many species of tree are on display? Ryan, you want to handle that one? How many species are on display? I would say dozens and dozens. Oh, that's right. Ryan is not a petrified wood guy necessarily. We'll come back to Ryan. Yes, George Beck discovered the Blue Lake rhino. That's a whole nother story for another day, but that photo of that gal who was clinging to the wall, they were climbing up to the Blue Lake rhino. So at the same time as the petrified wood and the great lavas and the German chocolate cake, there were rhinoceros here. And there's an amazing rare mold of where a rhino was killed by a lava and not completely smushed. Again, protected by the wood. What's with the shadows here? Was Beck one of the first geologists that identified the lava flows and dated them? No. We're talking about Israel Russell tomorrow night. Easily 30 years before Beck. We're back into the late 1890s and 1880s. And Russell, I think I'll learn this early tomorrow morning, was the first guy to map the lavas, and then the ability to absolute age date igneous rocks didn't come until a little bit after Beck's time that he was doing this research. No other animal fossils that I know of. Lots of you are asking about animals. Let me think about that. Not here, at least. Those lavas, I mean, it's mostly German chocolate cake. The lava just wiped everything out. There were whole plant and animal communities that are just gone. There's just this fragmentary encapsulation of this forest with all these different kinds of trees because of that water. Okay, it's 6:35. We're here. Let's take a walk, huh? Let's see. Give me a second. I need to take this precious stuff that grandson gave me. I don't want anybody to come in here and take it, or don't want it to blow into the river. So can you hang on for 5 minutes? I'm going to pack up stuff in the van. I'm going to come back, grab you. We're going to take a walk around this area. Okay? Thank you. Scheduled tomorrow night, Israel Russell, Saturday morning, Kittitas Valley, Sunday morning, paleomagnetism. It's going away. Oh, shit. All right, Patrick. Okay, you're still there. Gizmo. Everything's locked that has value. The ladder, the quilt, it's all staying here, no problem, okay? So don't worry about valuable stuff. It's all in the van and locked up. Now, I'm taking you out. And Dale and others that have motion sickness problems, close your eyes because it's going to take me a second to get, I'm going to be back in just a second, okay? You hang tight. What's going on here? Why can't I? Okay. You pause for a second. We're back. And if I'm fuzzy, you know you got to go down to your gear and you got to play around with the resolution, okay? Here we go. Five by five. Happy to hear that. And we got decent light out here now. And I know we have 4 bars over here at this overlook, so I'm going to hang out here and just make sure we're as good as we can be in case we lose each other. Where am I? I'm on the east side of the Columbia River. You're looking south. This is a reservoir, you know, this is a lake. The Columbia used to be a whitewater river, used to be a free-flowing river, and most of this basin below me and below us was floodplain, was desert. Can you imagine just a thin sliver of river water? And that river was heading to the south. You see that gap down there, a Sentinel Gap, and those are the Saddle Mountains. If you saw our Saddle Mountain show, that's where the Ringgold Formation is, that's where that 30 feet of volcanic ash is, etc. But you see the travelers going back and forth on Interstate 90. Let's swing to the east. And now you can see the freeway is kind of climbing, kind of lower right to upper left. Can you see those vehicles? Put my elbow on this to steady myself just a bit. I can't zoom, sorry. So you can see some of those white trucks, can't you? So those trucks are actually following the layering of the German chocolate cake. So the German chocolate cake is not perfectly not perfectly horizontal here. There's a gentle fold, a monocline. And if I scan over, now you're looking northeast towards John Stockton's house, only 2.5 hours away. And now you can kind of get a sense that the layers over there are more or less horizontal. If you look way upriver on the other side of the river, that's Frenchman Coulee. So that's where we were 2 weeks ago. Remember, with the crinkle cut French fries, etc. Okay. So before I leave this spot where I'm pretty sure I have 4 bars, are we okay? Are we communicating? Are we functional? And even if we lose each other a little bit, we know this is a spot. Good. I can't hold it. I got to say this. You see right here, there's a little triangular wedge of gray stuff. My finger screwed up the focus, but it's right up there. Do you see that little wedge? Those are flood gravels. The Missoula floods came in here and dumped a bunch of rocks that shouldn't be here. A bunch of granites and metamorphic rocks. And there's another one right up in there. Those little packages of light-colored rocks. That's not an accident. The floods were more than 500 feet deep here, flowing from left to right and dropping a bunch of rocks. Flood gravels like in the Rathdrum Prairie. All right, we got a young family burning off some steam, and we're gonna go right over there and visit with them. Hope we stay in touch. If we don't, I'll just keep walking and talking, and hopefully we'll just hook back up. I want to go over here in the shade. So you're looking at the museum that was built back in the 30s after Beck did his initial discoveries. He worked with, well, there's a whole story that Ryan Carlson knows. He worked with maybe the federal folks for a while, and then they decided to go state, and this eventually became a state park. But this is back during the Depression, so this is CCC boys who are building this thing stone by stone. Ryan Carlson, feel free in the live comments to add a little bit to the construction of the building or anything you think might be interesting. Or if folks want to ask about the history of building this museum, Ryan is a perfect person to ask here in real time, so go ahead and chat with him if you like. Now, of course, I think of Randy when I see things like this. Okay, I lost connection down there by the petroglyph, so I'm back to 3 bars, I think, here. Let me give you a chance to catch us again. We're back, and you can adjust your settings. I'd like to do more down by the petroglyphs, but there's 2 reasons I'm not. One is the coverage is bad, the cell coverage is bad. And 2, Ryan Carlson tells me that they're actively working with the tribes to continue to improve our understanding and perhaps upgrade some of the displays with that. So until that's a finished product, I'll respect those petroglyphs and continue to have leads with folks living today that I'm super excited to learn from. Okay, let's look into the sun here a little bit. Let's start seeing some of the size of some of these logs. I'm going to get a little staff from Steve. There's the ladder. Oh, by the way, do you notice anything unusual in this frame right now, rock-wise? Like everything in the frame is brown German chocolate cake. But look at this. Did you notice it? It's a granite. Pretty good evening light on it. So this is not the natural setting for this. In other words, this boulder was moved to put here at the museum, but it's an example of the size. I don't know, do you need my foot for scale? This is the size of these erratics, and of course there are erratics much bigger than this as well. But the Ice Age floods, I think I almost fell over. You heard Beck talk just briefly about the Great Flood. Now, he still didn't know much about Brett's work, but there are some granite erratics, and that's about the scale that are scattered throughout here, and that is the work that Ryan Carlson did. Okay, well, look what we have here. These aren't granite boulders. This is petrified log. Petrified log, and if you come here to the museum, these aren't behind cases. You know, looks just like wood. It was wood, but 16 million years ago, the wood was turned to stone. Underneath that Ginkgo lava, between the pillows. Please forgive my camera work here. I'm still trying to get used to the gizmo. Kevin was nice to turn off the sprinkler here for us. There's young people coming out of the restroom. Here's more petrified logs, 15 million. Thank you, Marie. I'm trying my best. Trying my best to use this gizmo. Now, I think we lose a little coverage this way, but I'm going to go for it anyway. We're heading towards the front of the museum here at Ginkgo State Park. Ginkgo Petrified Forest State Park. Oh, we got a family with young kids and a dog and the whole, it's like this is a car commercial now. I keep doing that because you expect it to be a thud, 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 you know, like a log, like a waterlogged log, but it's truly astounding. So there have been some upgrades to the exhibits here on occasion from Ryan's team. Some artwork. There's a whole nother site if you're thinking, I thought we were at Ginkgo, but this doesn't look familiar. There's another spot called the Trailside spot. There's a caretaker house there. It's a couple miles east. Good evening. Must be from Seattle. He didn't say hi. Sick burn, dude. So here's some of the work of Ryan and the team to help people understand what they're looking at. Some artwork by Stevo Minsky, who we've visited with before through these live streams, not in person. All right, they weren't super friendly, but I'm going to go over there anyway. Hopefully they speak a second language and they just didn't understand me saying hi, but he was thoroughly confused. Maybe it's because I'm holding a gizmo and talking to myself. Maybe I should give him a break. Hi. There we go. How are you? Still nothing. 3 strikes and you're out. Give you another look at these, if I can get the gizmo to turn. Come on, baby, turn. Pretty good light to see our layered basalt across the way, and you're like, wow, that's a lot of lava. And remember, you're just at a very small portion of that German chocolate cake. Oh, they are from a different country. Okay, I feel better. Now, I think I want to walk over there. Do you see across the way? This is Rocky Coulee down below us. And a little history lesson for you real quick. If you're an old timer and you remember driving to Spokane from Seattle or vice versa, the old road is down there at the bottom. And the old town of Vantage is right down there in the water. So they had to move or abandon much of the old town site when they put the Wanapum Dam in the 1960s. So this wasn't quite the Sunset Highway before 1927. The Bing Crosby thing, remember Bing and Al did not come through here, but when they built the original bridge that used to be down over here in 1927, yes, for a time in the 30s and 40s, this was State Route 10, and I think they did call it the Sunset Highway for a fair amount of time. But the light is good, and you see there's kind of a broad lit up plain over there. I want to walk a little bit with you over there, if we can stay in contact. What time is it? Oh, it's not even 7 yet. What the heck, okay? Plus I want to experiment with driving with this thing. So I appreciate Ryan Carlson being with us. I think I'm going to be so distracted here that I'm not going to be able to do much more live Q&A. So Ryan is your guy. If you want to ask Ryan questions about the history of this site, please go ahead and just type a question in uppercase, and you don't have to address it to Ryan necessarily, but maybe Ryan agreed that he was thinking of maybe he would join me for this, but he's over in Olympia. So he said, well, I can be in the live comments and help out that way. So you have a resource, viewers, and while you're chatting with Ryan, I'll try this driving thing. I'm kind of excited to see if this will work. Really good light. I should take a picture. I guess I don't know how to do it when I'm live streaming. That's nice, isn't it? That's a keeper right there. That's a beauty. Yeah, some of you say, let's walk. Well, yeah, if I wasn't live streaming with you guys, I'd start walking from here, but I don't have 3 more hours of battery probably. So, see, Ryan, I got my tag, man. I got my Discover Pass. We still working? I'm leaving the ladder for now. I'll come back and get the ladder and the other stuff. That stuff's worthless. It's a family heirloom at that point. I bought that ladder in Oxford, Ohio in 1989. Big purchase for us at the time. All right. And you could hold off on the shaming comments here. I know it's probably not legal to do this, but there's no traffic. There's just a Ukrainian family, that's all, okay? And I'm doing this for you, so lay off of that stuff if you would. And if I'm truly a terrible person, then they know where I live. They can find me and throw me in the slammer. Streaming while driving. Come on, Gizmo. Come on, Gizmo. We're going straight ahead. All right. So they built this, I don't know, Ryan, they opened this in maybe 1935. And of course, the freeway wasn't here in 1935. The freeway wasn't put in until 1960s. And so we're going to go down, we're going to leave this museum area, this state park, down the old driveway that used to go down to the Sunset Highway. So it's basically, we're going to be driving the way you would exit this park in let's pick a number, 1947. And again, 1947, there's no town of Vantage over there. There's nothing over there. We're going to get back to the main highway, aka the Sunset Highway. And it's not used much anymore. I don't know, should we sing a song or something? I'll sing a song my parents used to sing when we were driving to Grandpa and Grandma's house. Windows open, super hot. Let's see. My dad couldn't match tune. He had to start out because he couldn't match somebody else's tone. But if he got rolling, everybody else had a little bit better pitch. Let's see, 1940s. The bells are ringing for me. For me and my gal. Sorry, I hogged the harmony part there. I was showboating. The museum's right up there, and this is the old drive. Got you back? Got you back? And we're dropping stopping here a little bit. But I think even down here in the main highway, I think we're going to have some bars. So that was maybe just a temporary blip, I hope. Come on, Gizmo. God, I wonder what Bijou's doing right now. I miss that little guy so much. I think we're going to be good again. We got out of the hole. This is Rocky Coulee. Nice shot right here, actually. Hey, man, are you watching this in Scotland in the middle of the night? I mean, come on, this is the Wild Wild West. Look at that. And normally I curse seeing cell towers on the horizon because it kind of ruins the vibe. But in this case, I may be wrong, but I think that cell tower off to the right is our friend. And I think our little walk is going to stay within eyesight of that cell tower. No traffic, don't worry. Oh, which two layers? Yeah, there's two flows here. Well, let me think. These are the upper two most flows in the Grand Ronde. So I think that's the museum flow, aptly named, on top, and then I can't remember the layer right below. But we're a little bit older now than the Ginkgo flow that has all the wood. I want to do a little walk right here, but we're not going to get out yet. I want to spin up and show you some good pillows. I think the light might be really good to see the pillows. Feel like a dog? Like hanging out the window. Your tongue hanging out. Come on. Oh shit, hang on. Sorry, Patrick. Hang on. I never noticed that before. Perfect light. You see all this stuff here? A bunch of blocks of rocks and some kind of light colored sand and silt. This is an Ice Age flood bar. So all this jumble of stuff got dumped in here during the Ice Age 16,000 years ago. But just, 100 yards back was the two giant basalt lava flows that are 16 million years old. So just imagine you're driving to Seattle. Huge trucks, huge milk trucks and stuff, Here's one of the old original guardrails from the Sunset Highway in 1935, let's say. It's probably a little viewpoint of the Columbia, now that I think of it. It's extra wide right here. So we're up and out of Rocky Coulee. And now we are going to drive for about half a mile on an actual state route. So I'm going to shut up and really concentrate so nobody gets too mad, okay? There's no traffic, but I still feel like I need to be a little bit more cautious. So just hang on. I'm actually going to get you inside here. No vehicles. And our pullout is right here. I'm going to do a little U-ey. I'm going to get really excited if the sun is what I think it is on these pillows. Oh, am I too late? I'm too frickin' late. God dang it. Yeah, we got to hustle. We got to hustle. We're losing light here. So this is pillow basalt. And this is the Ginkgo flow. So there's logs in here. That guy doesn't know it. I didn't bring my hammer. What was I thinking? But I can crawl up here. So yeah, the light isn't bad. Could be better though. So this is the old Vantage highway. And the obvious thing to see here is this crumbly stuff. And it's crumbly, but it's surprisingly solid. And if I can get in here, and I do two things at once, if I can get in here, show you a little bit. These are blocks of obsidian, little volcanic glass. Let's see if I can get another spot. I don't want to climb up here too much. It's kind of unstable. Plus my balance isn't what it used to be. Let's try this. Let's try this. You're like, well, wait a minute. I was with you, but now I'm lost. I don't know what we're doing. Well, do you remember the little segment down at the museum? The fact that we have this basalt lava here totally shattered. That's what you're looking at. This is basically orange because it was all obsidian, volcanic glass. And when I look at this stuff, I just think steam. I just think steam and heat and interaction between the lava and the water. And you're chilling a bunch of this lava very, very quickly. And that's just kind of a normal thing like you see off the coast of Hawaii right now. Let me get in here though. Can I get... This is not bad. This is not bad. Let's get right in here. Can I do the macro zoom thing? Oh no, that's this way. Maybe I'm doing the macro zoom thing. You see how sharp these boundaries are? I can't zoom, but I can bring you in. So here's just regular old basalt lava, no problem, no issue. But then I hope you get a sense that this is basically volcanic glass right here. It's very chilled margin. And then here's this incredible steam and everything else. So we have lava dealing with water. Okay, who cares? Well, in this case, we care because guess what also is in with these pillows and this palagonite and this hyaloclastite? The answer is petrified logs. And you're like, well, show me them. Well, they were here, but of course they took out the logs here and put them down at the museum, and maybe, I don't know, somebody sold a couple of them or whatever. Thankfully, the logs are protected now. That's actually an interesting spot here. So why is it yellow? Well, there's a lot of iron in this lava, and there's a chemical weathering of this material. Oh, this is nice. This is not bad. Look at this. So I don't know what this looks like to you, but to me, this looks like drama. This looks like a very chaotic, yeah, here we go. Give you a sense of this is just basically super chilled, glassy material. And so the orange is a weathering. This was all black originally. This is all glassy and black originally. And then if we pull back, and again, there's zero traffic, please don't be worried. Nobody within 3 miles either way. If we pull back across the road, there's an Ice Age flood deposit on top. That tan stuff is a bunch of stuff that got washed in here very quickly by the Ice Age flood. So you're truly looking at an outcrop. An outcrop means an exposure of geology along a road cut. And that you're looking at 16 million, 16,000. a little bit more of this. It's a nice outcrop. It was crappy for a while, and I think they maybe cleaned it off again. There was a bad fire here a couple of years ago. Maybe that was somehow part of it. Come on, Gizmo. Hear the crickets? Hey! Okay, it's a perfect night for a walk, and it's 7:11, but if you're interested, actually, you know what? I thank you for joining us this evening from Vantage, Washington. It's been a pleasure to have you with us. We were focusing primarily on the work of George Beck, a geologist in Ellensburg from 1925 till 1959. And without his important work on petrified woods here in central Washington, we wouldn't have this protected land, this state park, to preserve all this wood and all this natural history that we can go out and enjoy. And we're getting into summer here, so it's quite hot, and rattlesnakes and the cheat grass is all browned over, and it's kind of a nasty place, as you'll see if you stick with us. But overall, in springtime, it's glorious with all the cactus blooming and everything else, and the sagebrush steppe is a wonderful place to be, all times of year, but especially in spring. And it was a savior for Liz and I during the pandemic. We would come out here and hike and, of course, see nobody. So I'm going to sign off here. And then if you feel like you want to stick with us, we'll do a little bit of a walk, but I don't want to feel the pressure of 900 people if we lose each other and that sort of thing. So, thanks to you. A toast to you. Here's to your parents and your grandparents, and you and your children and your grandchildren, and all your family and friends, and all the essential workers that continue to help us work through this global thing that many of us are coming out of. But I realize that many of you are still in a rather restrained, confined space, and I genuinely hope these live streams have been helpful to you just to cope with your present situation. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow night talking about Israel Russell back in my backyard. I love you. Good evening, good night, and good morning. Okay. Back in the car, back down to Rocky Coulee, and a little walk. Not a long one, but a little walk. Big old hay truck coming. You can't waste an evening like this. This is about as calm as you can expect here in Vantage. It's usually a wind tunnel. Seatbelt, Evelyn, seatbelt. That's a common occurrence, by the way. Hay trucks around here. Big business. Important part of our economy. Come on, Gizmo, straight ahead. Thank you. You're inside with me for now. I don't want you hanging out the window when we're going 50 miles an hour. I don't want my phone flying to Kittitas. On to the old Sunset Highway. Okay, I'm not going to try to get too deep into the hole here. I'm going to lose you again. Put my Discover Pass up so that Kevin doesn't bust me. Oh, the rest of my Rainier beer's getting warm down there. Man, that's a tragedy. That's not a word, by the way. Travesty, tragedy. All right, I normally don't lock up in these situations, but since I have the George Beck materials, I think I will. Okay, I kind of like the part where we walk together and I don't do a bunch of talking. So I think that's what we'll do here. Nothing too exciting to start. We just need to gain a little elevation. And then we'll head to a place where we can look back at the museum, look back at the river, and possibly find a couple of Ice Age flood rocks that were floated in here. Even though the Ice Age floods are not a big part of our session tonight, it's still a big part of it. And if you want to ask Ryan Carlson right now about this terrain, he spent many months out here on foot making a map of all the Ice Age flood erratic boulders that he was able to find. Boy, everything's brown and dry already. That didn't take long. Well, look what we have here. I'll be damned. Hey, that's not basalt. This is a granite that's slightly metamorphosed. Been sitting here for 16,000 years. There's no other way to explain it. There's no granite that's bedrock granite for 100 miles in all directions. Now, it's not the big boy, you know, there's erratics out here that are the size of the van or bigger. But we don't have the time to get out to those today. And they're the big boys, the big boulders that were rafted in on icebergs are typically at a higher elevation. They're typically about 900 feet above sea level. I can't remember what Vantage is. What's the elevation of Vantage, somebody? Can you look that up, please? 600 feet above sea level? I guess, question mark. There's a bunch of St. Helens ash out here. just like over at Frenchman. This is all 1980, St. Helens ash. More of it fell here than in Ellensburg. Come on, Gizmo. Come on, Gizmo. Hey, 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 focus. Concentrate. We're going that way. Don't do that again. It's like that meme with the guy walking with his girlfriend and then he's turning over his shoulder to look backwards. Gizmo sees something and does the meme. What's the name of that meme? So looking, museum is over here. God, museum's over here. Rocky Coulee, the old Sunset Highway. It just goes down to the water and stops. The road just goes right into the Wanapum Reservoir. And then all these boulders here, I don't really know what to say. I mean, I was out here on Sunday. Wind was howling, by the way, on Sunday. I'm like, I don't know, I guess these are all in place. I mean, as a geologist, you're always asking yourself, is this in place or are these boulders that were moved in? And it's sometimes an easy thing to decide and sometimes it's not an easy thing to decide. And just doing this little stroll with you, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, there's so many of them. I know they're all basaltic, but Ryan, are these all erratics here? Did you map these all? It's a landslide. Oh shit, no, sorry Patrick. Really? This is a landslide. My God, there's hardly any relief here. Did the landslide come from the north? I can't read and walk at the same time. By the way, you know, when we're out walking together, I know you are all wanting me to be careful and you want to make sure that I'm safe, but you got to give me a little credit now. I've been out here 30 years, okay? I do this all the time. I have experience out here. I know what I'm doing, so please. I'm aware of all that's out here. I think, yeah, it's 7:24. Oh, that's interesting. If this is a landslide, I learned that today. Interesting. I'm glad you're here for that, Ryan. Yeah, John, got it. Ticks, scorpions, snakes, spiders, lizards. Wonderful. Why leave the fucking house? Got it. Yes. Sorry, Patrick. All right. So there in the shadow is the Vantage sediment and the Ginkgo lava flow on top with the pillows. It's in the shade. That's why I didn't really stop there for you. But it gives you a sense that there's one magic horizon here that haul these petrified logs. And so it's not a kind of a haphazard thing. It's not a totally random thing about where you find this petrified wood. It's in that one horizon. And if you know the geometry of the rock layers, then you can know where to find more of the logs. And thankfully, again, because of the work of state parks and George Beck, we can enjoy these logs. Some of them in their natural position. Some of them are still out here in a more remote corner of the park, and they are protected, and we are grateful for that. If I had more time, we'd go all the way out to the rim there, but I don't. We've had a variety of things to talk about here today. And the next time you're passing through Central Washington, if it's a nice, calm evening like this, why not stop here at Ginkgo State Park and enjoy this natural history? I think that's enough for tonight. I sure do appreciate you joining us. Thank you for sticking around for the bonus coverage when we took a little walk and saw at least one little teeny tiny Ice Age flood erratic. Thanks for tuning in. I think I'm going to head back on the old Vantage Highway. I'm going to stop at Campus Utotem and get a beautiful cheeseburger and some fries. Campus Utotem, you gotta love it, in downtown Ellensburg. Signing off to you from Vantage, Washington, USA, George Beck, Ryan Carlson, Kevin the Ranger with the Rainier beer, and the ladder made out of wood, ironically enough, in petrified wood country. Good night. We'll see you tomorrow night, less than 24 hours from now. I love you.